Samurai Nippon. The Shimazu family's survival strategy.
Boom, 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 Mount Sakurajima's thunderous roar shakes the ground beneath Satsuma. In the midst of this volcanic fury, a clan meeting that would determine an entire family's destiny was underway. Here's a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries during Japan's brutal Warring States period. Why was the Shimazu family the only major clan that never fully surrendered to the three most powerful warlords in Japanese history: Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, or Tokugawa Ieyasu? How did this seemingly minor regional power survive for over 700 years, when virtually every other major family was wiped out? While legendary clans fell one by one, the Shimazu of Satsuma stood apart. They had discovered three secrets that escaped everyone else. Today, we'll unlock these secrets using three keywords: geography, information, and contrarian thinking. What we're about to uncover isn't just ancient history. These are survival strategies that Fortune 500 companies use today. The final revelation will completely change
how you think about turning disadvantages into advantages. But first, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon. This helps us bring you more incredible stories from Japanese history.
Chapter 1: Turning a nightmare location into gold.
Let's start with our first keyword: geography. This is where the Shimazu family's genius first revealed itself. Picture this: it's the late 1500s and all of Japan is at war. The Shimazu clan controls Satsuma province, literally the southernmost tip of Japan, about 400 miles from the main island of Honshu. To put this in perspective, imagine trying to run a business from rural Alaska, while your competitors operate out of New York City. Here's how hopeless their situation looked. The Shimazu controlled territory worth about 180,000 koku of rice production annually. In modern terms, think of a regional company. With $50 million in revenue trying to compete against Oda Nobunaga's empire, which would be worth roughly $1 billion today, that's a 1 to 20 disadvantage, like a small startup taking on Amazon. The clan patriarch Shimazu Tadayoshi reportedly told his retainers, "We're stuck at the edge of the world on this volcanic wasteland. The imperial court in Kyoto calls us uncivilized barbarians. Our crops fail when the volcano erupts, typhoons destroy what's left, and we're so far from civilization that news takes months to reach us." And he wasn't exaggerating. Mount Sakurajima's constant eruptions buried farmland under ash, contaminated water supplies, and collapsed buildings under the weight of volcanic debris. Summer temperatures soared above 100 F with crushing humidity, while winter brought bone-chilling winds from the Asian mainland. It seemed like the worst possible place to build a power base. But here's where the Shimazu showed their genius. They saw an opportunity that everyone else missed. 600 miles south of their worthless volcanic home lay the Ryukyu Kingdom, modern-day Okinawa. This wasn't just another small island nation, it was the Singapore of medieval Asia, the crucial hub connecting China, Korea, Southeast Asia, and Japan in a trade network worth billions in today's money. Chinese silk, Korean ceramics, Southeast Asian spices, ivory, and coral all flowed through Ryukyu. The Shimazu realized they could buy these luxury goods at source prices and sell them on mainland Japan for 10 times the cost. Think of it as having exclusive access to wholesale from Asia, while everyone else paid retail prices. The real gold mine was sugar. In 16th century Japan, sugar was literally worth its weight in silver, about $500 per pound in today's money. The Shimazu established an exclusive pipeline from Ryukyu's sugar plantations to the sweet-toothed aristocrats of Kyoto and Osaka. But even more valuable than money was information. Remember, this was before telegraphs, phones, or the internet. The Shimazu's trade network gave them intelligence about mainland Asian politics, new military technologies, weather patterns, and disease outbreaks, weeks or even months before their rivals. In modern terms, it was like having insider trading information that was completely legal. This intelligence advantage paid off spectacularly in 1543, when Portuguese merchants introduced firearms to Japan at Tanegashima Island, which happened to be under Shimazu control. While other clans were still fighting with swords and spears, Shimazu Tadatoki immediately grasped the game-changing potential of gunpowder weapons. Shimazu Tadatoki reportedly declared, "These iron tubes will revolutionize warfare. Whatever it costs, we must learn to make them ourselves." He paid the Portuguese the equivalent of 20 million in today's money for just 2 muskets. then hired Japan's best swordsmiths to reverse engineer the technology. Within 12 months, Satsuma had not only mastered gunpowder weapons, but improved upon the original Portuguese design. This innovation speed would impress even today's tech giants.
Chapter 2. The Four Brothers Corporate Dream Team.
Our second keyword, information, reveals the Shimazu family's most sophisticated strategy, the perfect division of labor among four brothers who functioned like a modern executive team. Most feudal families tore themselves apart in succession. Wars, just look at the Oda, Takeda, or Wasugi clans. But the four Shimazu brothers created something unprecedented, a family corporation where each member had clearly defined roles and absolute trust in the others. Think of eldest brother Yoshihisa, 1533-1611, as the CEO and Secretary of State rolled into one. His headquarters in Satsuma Castle wasn't just a residence, it was a strategic command center that would make the Pentagon jealous. Every wall displayed detailed maps of Kyushu, and massive filing systems tracked every rival clan's military strength, financial resources, and political alliances. Yoshihisa's intelligence briefings read like modern corporate analysis, automosorin, leveraging Christian connections for Portuguese trade, but facing domestic religious backlash, or Ryozoji Takanobu. Completed regional expansion, but showing signs of internal management problems. The precision rivaled anything you'd see from McKinsey & Company. What made Yoshihisa brilliant wasn't his military skill, it was his ice-cold strategic calculation. He never fought a battle unless he could guarantee numerical superiority, and he became a master at avoiding conflicts the Shimazu couldn't win. This patient, calculated approach kept his family alive, while more aggressive clans destroyed themselves. Second brother Yoshihiro, 1535-1619, served as their military commander-in-chief. Picture a 6-foot-tall warrior genius who could analyze enemy formations like a chess grandmaster reading the board. Yoshihiro didn't just excel at combat, he could predict enemy commanders' decisions by studying their deployment patterns. His tactical notebooks contain remarkably accurate predictions. Enemy general shows tendency to micromanage front lines. Strong individual fighter but poor overall coordinator. Expect command breakdown approximately 2 hours into engagement. These weren't lucky guesses, they were the insights of a master strategist who understood human psychology. Third brother Toshihisa, 1537-1592, functioned as CFO and intelligence chief, managing the Ryukyu trade that generated roughly $250 million annually in today's money. But his real masterpiece was creating the Gosoba private CIA with permanent stations in Kyoto, Osaka, and other major cities. This intelligence network employed merchants, monks, entertainers, and courtesans, and one who could gather information without raising suspicion. They monitored rival clans 247, tracking troop movements, alliance negotiations, and even personal scandals that might affect political decisions. The quality of their intelligence rivaled anything modern nations possess. Fourth brother Ihisa, 1549-1587, was their innovation director, a tactical genius who revolutionized Japanese warfare while still in his 20s. His masterpiece was the fishing wild duck, strategy and advanced form of guerrilla warfare that lured enemies into carefully prepared kill zones. Ihisa's tactical philosophy was pure Silicon Valley, thinking in direct confrontation, larger numbers always win. Therefore, avoid direct confrontation, force the enemy to divide their forces and defeat them piecemeal. This disruptive warfare concept was centuries ahead of its time and connects directly to modern business strategy. The brothers' intelligence operation achieved something extraordinary. They detected Toyotomi Hideyoshi's massive invasion of Kyushu. 8 months before it happened, Yoshihisa's diary entry reads, Hashiba Hideyoshi planning Kyushu descent next spring. Army of 200,000 reported. Mori Kobayakawa Kuroda leading vanguard. Direct resistance would be suicide. This early warning allowed them to switch from total war to negotiated surrender mode, saving their clan from annihilation. In the business world, we'd call this superior market intelligence, preventing a hostile takeover.
Chapter 3. Contrarian Thinking. The Korean Gambit that made history.
Our third keyword, contrarian thinking, reached its peak during the Korean invasions, where Shimazu Yoshihiro pulled off one of history's greatest strategic reversals. When Toyotomi Hideyoshi launched his disastrous invasion of Korea in 1592, most Japanese commanders participated reluctantly. They could see this was a military and economic catastrophe waiting to happen. But 61-year-old Yoshihiro did something completely unexpected. He volunteered enthusiastically and committed 10,000 of his best troops. This looked like strategic suicide, but it was actually brilliant contrarian thinking. Yoshihiro realized that while he'd always be a minor regional player in Japanese politics, he could become an indispensable ally in Korea. Instead of fighting for scraps at home, he'd dominate overseas and return as a war hero. The Satsuma forces landed at Busan, into a completely alien environment, the spicy aroma of Korean cuisine, unfamiliar architecture, and a language they'd never heard. But rather than being intimidated, the Satsuma warriors thrived in this foreign battlefield. In 1597, at the siege of Sacheon Castle, the demon Shimazu legend was born. A combined Ming Chinese and Korean army of 200,000 surrounded Yoshihiro's 7,000 defenders. In modern corporate terms, imagine a Fortune 500 company's entire workforce attacking a single regional office. The odds were hopeless, but Yoshihiro had learned from centuries of volcanic eruptions back home. His engineers, experts at working with Mount Sakurajima's volcanic soil, quickly adapted their techniques to Korean terrain. They built a fortress complex with deep moats, high earthworks, and sophisticated drainage systems that turned their position into an impregnable stronghold. The siege lasted 3 days of continuous assault. Wave after wave of Chinese and Korean troops crashed against the Shimazu defenses, only to be shattered by the defenders' revolutionary fishing wild duck tactics. Korean historical records describe the carnage in vivid detail. The Satsuma warriors fought like demons possessed. Their sword techniques were supernatural. One stroke could fell 3 or 4 men. Their battle cry, AIO, struck terror into our troops' hearts. Their eyes burned red with battle fury, truly the faces of war gods. Yoshihiro himself, at age 61, fought on the front lines with the energy of a man half his age. Historical accounts credit him with personally killing over 20 enemy soldiers. A Korean officer who survived the battle later wrote, "The Shimazu general, though elderly, possessed the strength of a demon." When the dust settled, the Ming-Korean force had suffered 30,000 casualties, while the Shimazu defenders lost only 500. A 60-to-1 kill ratio that military historians still study today. This victory spread the Demon Shimazu reputation across the entire Korean peninsula, and enemy armies began retreating at the mere sight of Shimazu banners. But here's what made Yoshihiro truly brilliant. He didn't let victory go to his head. While celebrating with his troops, he was already writing strategic assessments to his brother back home, predicting the entire Korean venture's ultimate failure. His letter reads, "We're winning every battle but losing the war. The supply lines are impossibly long, local resistance is fierce, and the strategic objectives are unrealistic. This campaign will continue while the Taiko lives, but collapse immediately after his death." When Hideyoshi died in 1598, the invasion was indeed abandoned, proving Yoshihiro's strategic analysis completely correct. The ability to separate tactical success from strategic reality, that's the kind of thinking that kept the Shimazu family alive for centuries.
Chapter 4, Seekahara, the most audacious escape in military history.
The Shimazu contrarian thinking reached its absolute pinnacle at the Battle of Seekahara in 1600, producing what might be the most dramatic military maneuver in world history. September 15, 1600, 8 a.m. Fog blankets the Seekahara battlefield as Shimazu Yoshihiro faces impossible odds. The morning air carries the scent of dew-soaked grass, nervous horses, and the metallic tang of weapons. Tension suffocates the battlefield like a physical weight. Here's how hopeless the situation looked. Yoshihiro commanded 1,500 Satsuma warriors as part of the Western Army, facing 75,000 Eastern Army troops loyal to Tokugawa Ieyasu. In modern terms, imagine a small regional company's entire workforce going up against Google, Apple, and Microsoft combined. The Shimazu were completely surrounded in enemy territory with zero chance of conventional escape. But Yoshihiro possessed something more valuable than superior numbers, superior intelligence. His spy network had uncovered a devastating secret. Several Western Army commanders had already agreed to betray their own side. The night before battle, an urgent messenger reached Yoshihiro's camp. Messenger: "My lord, Kobayakawa Hideaki has made a secret deal with Tokugawa. He'll attack our rear the moment fighting begins." Yoshihiro: "Anyone else planning to switch sides?" Messenger: "Kikuwa Hiroi refuses to engage. Wakizaka and Kuchiki also show signs of treachery." Yoshihiro: "Exactly as expected. Ishida Mitsunari is an honorable man but a terrible politician." Yoshihiro summoned his nephew Toyohisa for one final strategy session. Campfire light flickered across their faces as they planned what many consider the most audacious military maneuver in Japanese history. "Yoshihiro, Toyohisa, this battle's outcome is already decided. The Western Army will collapse within hours." Toyohisa: "Then what are our orders?" Yoshihiro: "We cannot disgrace Satsuma's honor by fleeing like cowards. But we also won't die meaninglessly." Toyohisa: "What do you propose?" Yoshihiro: "When cornered, attack forward. We'll show Japan what Satsuma warriors are made of." At 8 a.m. the battle erupted, but the Shimazu force remained motionless. While the Fukushima and Ukita clans clashed in savage hand-to-hand combat, Yoshihiro coolly analyzed the developing situation, waiting for his moment. This patience demonstrated Yoshihiro's tactical brilliance. Rushing into premature action would accomplish nothing except adding to the casualty count. Better to preserve his forces until the decisive moment than commit everything at once. At 2 p.m. the betrayals began. Kobayakawa Hideaki's 15,000 troops charged down from Mount Matsuo, smashing into the Western Army's rear exactly as Yoshihiro's spies had predicted. The Western Army's formation disintegrated instantly, leaving isolated pockets of resistance scattered across the battlefield. Now, Yoshihiro executed his masterstroke. Instead of retreating away from the enemy, he ordered a direct frontal assault on Tokugawa Ieyasu's heavily defended headquarters. Military historians still debate whether this was genius or insanity. Yoshihiro addressed his troops: "All units, attention! We're charging straight at Tokugawa's command post. Remember, when retreating, advance forward. Show them what Satsuma pride looks like." At 3 p.m., 1,500 Satsuma warriors began their legendary charge. The battlefield echoed with their distinctive war cry, "Ai-ai-o!" as they sprinted directly towards 75,000 enemy troops. Witnesses described the scene as absolutely surreal. Why were the losers attacking the winners? Eastern Army commanders were completely paralyzed by confusion. Was this a surrender attempt? A final desperate attack? A suicide charge? The hesitation lasted only seconds, but seconds were all the Shimazu needed. Fukushima Masanori: "What the hell are those Satsuma lunatics doing?" Kato Kiyomasa: "No idea, but don't underestimate them." Honda Tadakatsu: "I've heard stories about Shimazu retreats. Stay alert." Exploiting this moment of bewilderment, the Satsuma force carved through multiple enemy formations like a sword through silk. Their legendary swordsmanship created a corridor of destruction straight through the heart of the Eastern Army. The sight of Satsuma warriors racing past Tokugawa's headquarters became the stuff of legend. Tokugawa Ieyasu himself witnessed this incredible spectacle from his command post. Years later, he reportedly said, "The Shimazu retreat was the most magnificent display of warrior spirit I've ever witnessed. Fighting men like that would terrify anyone. But this brilliant escape came at a terrible price." Yoshihiro's nephew Toyohisa volunteered for the rear guard, sacrificing himself to ensure his uncle's survival. Though Toyohisa's swordsmanship cut down dozens of pursuers, he was eventually overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Toyohisa's final words: "I die here to preserve Satsuma's honor. Uncle, return safely to our homeland." Toyohisa fell at age 30, far too young even by warring period standards. Yoshihiro, tears streaming down his face, continued his desperate 900-mile journey back to Satsuma, equivalent to walking from New York to Florida. While crossing Isibe by boat, Yoshihiro composed a poem honoring his nephew's sacrifice. "Knowing when to fall, the cherry blossoms are truly flowers. Warriors truly warriors." This advance while retreating strategy is now taught in business schools worldwide as the ultimate example of turning desperate circumstances into advantage through unconventional thinking.
Chapter 5, Edo Period. The art of playing three-dimensional chess.
3 years after Seekahara in 1603, the Shimazu family played their final and most sophisticated gambit in direct negotiations with the now supreme Tokugawa Ieyasu. This represents the culmination of 7 centuries of survival strategy. Picture the scene at Edo Castle's Great Hall, thick with incense and political tension. Shogun Ieyasu's presence dominated the room like a physical force, with dozens of daimyo prostrating themselves in terrified silence. But Shimazu Yoshihisa maintained his dignity even while kneeling. Yoshihisa's explanation was a masterpiece of political theater. Honorable Shogun, my brother Yoshihiro's actions at Seekahara were completely unauthorized. He acted independently against family policy. The Shimazu clan always intended to support the Eastern Army. This was obviously a complete fabrication, but Ieyasu understood the bigger picture. Conquering Satsuma would require transporting 100,000 troops across 400 miles of ocean, costing roughly $10 billion in today's money. Worse, it might drive the Shimazu into alliance with Ming Dynasty China via their Ryukyu connections, creating a foreign threat right on Japan's doorstep. Ieyasu's response was calculated. I accept the Shimazu explanation. However, future loyalty must be demonstrated through actions, not words. Yoshihisa's reply contained a subtle masterstroke. Naturally, Your Excellency. Satsuma has always honored our sacred duty to the imperial throne. Notice he said imperial throne, not Tokugawa House. This tiny distinction left room for future maneuvering. The result, Satsuma survived as a major domain, controlling 770,000 kokuroli, equivalent to a Fortune 500 company, maintaining its independence. But survival was just the beginning. The Shimazu family now implemented a three-pillar strategy that would make them king Japanese history. Pillar 1, the Ryukyu double game. The Ryukyu kingdom became Satsuma's economic engine through brilliant dual sovereignty. Officially, Ryukyu remained an independent nation trading with China. Unofficially, Satsuma controlled every aspect of this trade, circumventing Japan's isolation policies to maintain lucrative connections with Asia. The profits were staggering. Sugar alone generated annual revenue equivalent to $1.5 billion today, while the complete trade portfolio, kelp, ceramics, spices, luxury goods, reached $2.5 billion annually. This gave Satsuma real economic power, far exceeding their official 770,000 koku rating. While other domains struggled with debt, Satsuma remained financially robust throughout the Edo period. This economic strength allowed them to maintain military readiness and political influence that other regional powers couldn't match. Pillar 2, education as strategic investment. Satsuma's Gochu education system was revolutionary. Imagine combining West Point military training with MIT, engineering education, and Harvard Business School strategic thinking. This wasn't just schooling, it was systematic development of future leaders. The curriculum included military strategy, mathematics, physics, Dutch studies, the only Western knowledge available, political science, and economics. Most remarkably, advancement was based on merit rather than birth, creating a true meritocracy within the samurai class. The results speak for themselves. Saigo Takamori, Okubo Toshimichi, Komatsu Tatawaki, Oyama Iwao, Togo Heihachiro. Virtually every major figure in Japan's modernization emerged from this educational system. Satsuma's investment in human capital ultimately transformed an entire nation. Pillar 3, technology as competitive advantage. Throughout the Edo period, Satsuma aggressively pursued technological innovation. They built reverberatory furnaces for advanced metallurgy, constructed Western-style warships, researched steam power, and established medical schools teaching European techniques. The crown jewel was the Shuseikan Industrial Complex, Japan's first integrated manufacturing facility. Producing iron cannons, steamships, glass products, and chemicals, this represented Japan's earliest attempt at comprehensive industrialization, laying groundwork for the Meiji period's rapid modernization. When the Meiji Restoration began, Satsuma forces carried Spencer repeating rifles and Armstrong cannons, cutting-edge weapons that gave them decisive advantages over traditional samurai armies. Their technological superiority, built over decades of careful investment, proved crucial in Japan's transformation. The Shimazu family's 700-year survival strategy culminated in leading Japan's modernization. They converted geographical isolation into economic advantage, built superior intelligence networks for political survival, and used contrarian thinking to overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. Their ultimate achievement transforming not just their own clan, but an entire civilization.
Ending.
The sun sets behind Mount Sakurajima, painting the Satsuma sky in brilliant reds and oranges. The scent of volcanic ash mixes with ocean salt, while fishing boats return home for the evening. Time for the final answer. How did the Shimazu family survive for 7 centuries when virtually every other major clan was destroyed? They mastered what we now call asymmetric strategy, using the logic of the underdog to defeat seemingly superior opponents. Unable to win through brute force, they maximized geographical advantages, invested heavily in intelligence networks, and consistently chose unconventional solutions when conventional approaches meant certain defeat. Most importantly, they never confused short-term victories with long-term survival. These lessons remain powerfully relevant today. In Silicon Valley, startups regularly defeat established corporations by finding niche markets, leveraging superior information, and exploiting blind spots that larger companies can't see. Even tech giants like Apple, Google, and Amazon still use Shimazu-style contrarian thinking to maintain their dominance. Leverage geography, control information, win through contrarian moves. The Shimazu survival playbook offers timeless wisdom for anyone facing overwhelming odds. How would you apply these ancient warrior strategies to your modern challenges?